How you doing? Today we're teaching on the law and grace. Just a topic that will help us out to incorporate to our daily lives. So let's look what the law means, and let's look what grace means. So let's look. So law, there were 10 commandments and the civil law. The 10 commandments were given at Mount Sinai, also Mount Horeb. Then you have the civil laws, also called ceremonial law. And the reason you had that is because, after the 10 commandments, there are other laws, for civil laws, for the camp of Israel. Unclean things, unclean food, unclean, like sickness and so forth, What you do with, who's in charge of counseling and so forth. So there's a lot of things, unclean food and so forth. So there's a lot of things in the ceremonial law, So, but then we're looking at grace. We have undeserved acceptance, undeserved favor, and undeserved kindness, and undeserved friendship. And that's what grace means, Grace means undeserved or unmerited. So we know that Old Testament also means old agreement. You hear people say old covenant. It's old agreement. New covenant, which is New Testament. So you have Old Testament, it's old agreement. New Testament, it's a new agreement. So new agreement is grace, it's liberty, it's Jesus. So let's look at the teaching. So as we follow in book of Matthew chapter 5, this is what we see. Matthew chapter 5. Think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. And what's that mean? Until the whole law, it can be fulfilled. That's what it means. Verse 19. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach them, so he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So, basically, if you do the least of the commandment, you shall be least in the kingdom of heaven. But as we go to the next verse, we read, "For I say unto you," this is what Jesus said to the Pharisees and the scribes, during that time. You had Pharisees, you had Sadducees, you had Essenes, you had Zealots. These were groups of Jewish people of sects. These were Jewish people sects, during that time. They were a group of people that represented, in a temple. So all of this had to do with Maccabean revolt and Hasmonean period, with Maccabean revolt and Hasmonean period. When you look at the history of Israel. So we see four different groups. But as we're looking at this verse, we see what Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, So it says, in this verse, "For I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribe and Pharisee, you shall in no case enter in the kingdom of heaven." So basically, your righteousness has got to be better than Pharisees. If anybody knew about the law, were Pharisees. They knew all the laws. They knew the civil laws. They knew, everything. So they're pretty much lawyers. That's what they call it. That's what law means. Lawyers. They know the law. Or also they call it doctor of law. So the Pharisees knew it. So in order to exceed their righteousness, pretty much impossible. All of what it meant, basically Jesus was speaking to the Jewish people to come to the end of their law, to come, to get saved, and to come to grace. Now, as we're looking at this verse, 1 Corinthians 15:56, the sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. So when we have the sin, the strength of it is the law, So when we have a commandment, when we have a law it's a statute. Law is a commandment. When we have a commandment, when we have a law, the strength of it, it's sin. The strength of law, it's sin. So, for whosoever shall keep the whole law and yet offend one point is guilty of all. That's what the book of James is saying. So it says, for whosoever shall keep the whole law and yet offend one point is guilty of all. For he that said, do not commit adultery, and said also, do not kill. Now if thou commit adultery, yet if thou kill, thou art become a transgression of the law. So if you break one, you break them all the 10 commandments. So what it's saying that we're not justified. What's justify means? Validate. Validate. We're not validated by the law. We're not justified by the 10 commandments. We're not, because if we break one, we're guilty of all. So, and be found in Philippians, book of Philippians, and be found in Him, not having my own righteousness, which is from the law, but which is through faith in Christ. The righteousness which is from God by faith. So we are righteous by believing in Jesus Christ. We are righteous by faith in Jesus Christ. And what faith means? Believe in something you don't see. So you believe in Jesus Christ, and then you believe in Jesus Christ, then you are righteous. Just by believing in Him, you are a righteous person. Not by your own works of the law, but by faith in Jesus. So, as we look at the next verse, for the law was given by Moses, but grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. So that's what we're seeing, So it says this in the book of John, in the book of Acts, it says, as we read this verse, Acts 13:39, and by Him all that believe are justified from all things, from which we could not be justified by the law of Moses. We cannot be validated. We cannot be justified by the law of Moses. We cannot, because we look in the book of James, chapter 2, if we break one law, we're guilty of all. So we cannot be validated. We cannot be justified by the law of Moses. So that's what we're learning, So, and next verse on Romans chapter 3, this is what we're learning. Now we know that what things soever the law said is said to them who are under the law, that every mouth may be stopped and all the world may become guilty before God. Therefore, by the deeds of the law, there shall no flesh be justified in the sight, for the law is the knowledge of sin. So as we're looking at 1 Corinthians chapter 15, 56, the strength of sin is the law. So as we look in the book of Romans chapter 3, verse 20, so as we look in the book of Romans chapter 3, we find out by the deeds of the law there shall no flesh be justified in the sight of God. So that means flesh, us. We cannot be validated. So by the works of the law, there's no flesh shall be validated, in the sight of God. We cannot be justified. Not by the works of the law. Because what happened, when you have law, you have the strength of sin, The strength of sin is the law. Now, chapter 10, book of Romans. For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believeth. Believe in what? Believe in Jesus Christ. Faith in Jesus Christ. For Moses described the righteousness which is of the law, that the man which doeth those things shall live by them. So remember in Exodus 19, when the Israelites came back from Egypt, after 430 years of slavery under Egyptian, you have Moses, he was the leader, and Aaron the high priest, they were both leaders, and they brought the Israelites across the Red Sea. They brought the Israelites in the wilderness at Mount Sinai, or also Mount Sinai, also called Mount Horeb. That's when we know when Elijah ran away from Jezebel, and he hid in Mount Horeb. Mount Horeb is the same as Mount Sinai, so I'm not trying to confuse you. So the 10 Commandments was given at Mount Sinai or also Mount Horeb. It's the same mountain, it's the same place. So that's where in Exodus 19 we know God gave the Israelites the 10 Commandments, And the Israelites said, yeah, we can do it. We can do the 10 Commandments. We do what is you want us to do, God, and so forth. And that's the Israelite, at the time in the wilderness, they're like, yeah, we take the 10 Commandments, we do by the law. And what happened, verse 5, when we're looking at, for Moses described the righteousness which is of the law, that the man which doeth those things shall live by them. Verse 6, but the righteousness which is of faith speaketh, on this wise, say it not in thy heart, who shall ascend in heaven, that is to bring Christ down from above. So righteousness is of faith, you know. It's not of the law. So if it is of the law, that means, okay, well, I guess Jesus got to, live again and fulfill it all over again, you know. So, Lord Jesus had to fulfill, one time, you know. For sin shall not have dominion over you, for you're not under the law, but under grace. So when we're looking at Romans chapter 6, we see that, you know, we're under grace. And as we're looking at Galatians, Christ become of no effect. Christ become of no effect into you, whosoever of you are justified by law, you are fallen from grace. So when you validate yourself, okay, or I'm justified by the law, I'm doomed by the Ten Commandments, I'm doomed by my own works, so forth. You're fallen from grace. When you justify yourself, when you say, I'm doomed by the works of the law, when you say to yourself, I'm doing all the Ten Commandments and so forth, what happens? All of a sudden, your mind is falling away from grace, and all of a sudden you become a bondage of the legalism. You become a bondage of the law. For through the Spirit wait for the hope of righteousness by faith. So we can see that we're righteous by faith, not by the works of the law. And the scripture foreseeing that God would justify the heathen through faith, preached before the gospel into Abraham, saying, in thee shall all nations be blessed. So we see that, So, God foreseeing, after giving the Ten Commandments to the Israelites, after God giving the Ten Commandments to the Israelites at the Mount Sinai, He was foreseeing that the heathen, which is Gentile, would be justified by faith. Really, that's what it is. Okay, and verse 3, Romans, chapter 3 in Romans, seeing it is one God which shall justify the circumcision by faith and uncircumcision through faith. Circumcision is people that during the law of Moses, they had to cut the foreskin of the private organ. Do we? So this verse 30. Seeing it is one God which shall justify the circumcision by faith and circumcision through faith, and uncircumcision through faith. Do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid. Yet we establish the law. We already established the law. People say, well, how can we avoid the Ten Commandments? How can we do that? It's holy and so forth. We cannot void the Ten Commandments. When we look at this verse, then we make the void the law through faith? God forbid. No. We're not making the law void. No. We're not making it. We establish it. And how we establish it, let's look in this verse. Romans chapter 13. Owe no man anything but love to one another, for he that loveth one another hath fulfilled the law. So that's how we establish. That's what Apostle Paul, when he wrote the letter to the church in Rome, he says how we establish the law, by loving one another. So, and we're almost at the end right here. So let's check this last verse. So, Galatians chapter 5. For all the law is fulfilled in one word, even this: thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So, when we say, okay, the law is established, this is how we know it's established. For all the law is fulfilled in one word, even this: thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So that's how we know it's established, the law, because we're loving one another, loving your neighbor as yourself. So anyway, so this is hopefully you guys get a knowledge of this and understanding. And thank you so much, and God bless you. Thank you. Have a nice day.